In March of 2004, a Mexican Air Force surveillance plane patrols along the Gulf of Mexico. On the lookout for drug smugglers, its infrared camera instead captures this startling footage. A string of glowing orbs. The video lasts for almost a minute, and here you can see 11 of those orbs seeming to fly in formation.
Ok, no sabemos qué estamos viendo, son unos objetos nada luminosos que vienen a la misma altura que nosotros, no podemos saber qué distancia.
When the plane turns to follow, the objects seem to disappear. The camera operator declares that whatever it was he's filmed, it's 100% real. The Mexican Secretary of Defense releases the video so that the scientific community can study it. MJ Banias, a journalist who covers the unexplained, has looked into the incident.
When this sighting was first made public, a lot of people within the UFO community got very excited about UFOs operating in fleets.
These orbs are reminiscent of those Foo Fighters seen by World War II pilots. They also look similar to another Mexican UFO we've reported on before. This glowing object, which Captain Eric Delgado recorded in 2020, as it tracked his cargo plane for 20 minutes in the airspace above Monterey.
That is phenomenal, man. Look at that.
Strangely, that orb never showed up on Delgado's collision avoidance system or air traffic control's radar.
There's weather about 40 miles off our left wingtip where this thing seems to have disappeared.
I guess now I can definitively say we are not alone.
Something similar was reported with this Mexican Air Force incident. The crew of the surveillance plane counted 11 objects, but only 3 showed up on the plane's radar. For years, this video has sparked hot debate, so we turned it over to our team of experts. Mick West is a forensic video analyst who looks for any tampering with the footage. His conclusion?
This is a real video of UFOs. It was taken by the Mexican military and verified as being a real thing.
Which brings us to the challenge of identifying those glowing objects. Astronomer and video effects designer Mark D'Antonio considers the most obvious answer.
There's a theory that this is maybe a fleet of aircraft being flown by drug smugglers, but these objects never distance themselves from each other. I think drug smugglers are probably not championship formation flying pilots like the Thunderbirds and the Blue Angels. You know, one plane will go up higher, one will come lower, so I don't think that these are other aircraft.
West considers a string of other theories, including a mysterious natural phenomenon, orbs of light known as ball lightning.
Ball lightning is very, very rare, and it normally just occurs one at a time and doesn't last very long. So I think the likelihood of this being a whole bunch of ball lightning all at once is extraordinarily low.
What about space junk?
A rocket disintegrating you would see up in the air. This is something that are looking basically horizontal out of the horizon. So space junk is not really a good explanation.
So the objects don't move like space junk. In fact, West thinks they might not be moving at all. Plotting the plane's location, West calculates that its camera was pointed out over the Gulf of Mexico.
If we look at a map of the region, we can see there's a whole bunch of oil wells, which usually have some kind of flare on the top. So perhaps what they were seeing were the flares from these platforms.
But it seems clear the objects are moving, right?
Just above the horizon, you're poking up these little oil wells. And here's some kind of dummy clouds, which I've put in. And if we move the camera to the left, it looks like the oil rigs are moving past the clouds. So it's an illusion of motion.
But even West admits his theory isn't 100% certain. Digging deeper, we found out the oil wells are almost 100 miles from the plane, making it unlikely they'd show up on thermal camera. And another crucial detail. You see the flickering flames from the oil wells? In the alleged UFOs, no flickering. So, oil wells or something stranger? We're calling this a sighting of genuine UFOs. And the similarities with the orb recently reported by Captain Delgado are striking. 17 years after this video was shot, the Mexican government, just like us, is still looking for answers. It's just after dark on August 25, 2013, in Aguadilla, Puerto Rico. The crew of a United States Customs and Border Patrol plane is taking off for a routine mission when they notice a strange pinkish light approaching from the northwest. They turn on their thermal imaging camera to track the object, and this is what they see. Let's take a closer look. It appears to be a metallic sphere moving fairly quickly around the airport. Then it heads out over the ocean where it does something truly unexpected. Did you catch what happened? Let's zoom in. The object seems to splash down in the water before re-emerging seconds later. Even more bizarre, the object then splits into two separate craft. And people, there is no known Earth technology that can do that. After nearly 4 minutes, the object disappears from view. Now, Puerto Rico is the location for several sightings of so-called USOs, unidentified submerged objects. Back in the 1990s, a Navy helicopter pilot allegedly saw an unidentified dark underwater mass during a training exercise. Another published report describes a similar incident in 1963 during an anti-submarine exercise led by the USS Wasp.
They keep talking about these incidents occurring around their aircraft carriers, naval ships. Puerto Rico, long history of interesting sightings, very long history.
What makes this video so special is that it comes straight from a $1 million infrared camera mounted on a government plane. There's a ton of data to analyze here. So what do our experts think?
It's a credible case, it's a credible video.
Richard Hoffman heads the Scientific Coalition for Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon. First question, is the video real?
The telemetry you see on the screen showing GPS location identically matched what you had with radar. So there really was an aircraft.
Next, Hoffman's team determines the object's temperature to help identify it. They compare the heat signature of the craft to some cows on the ground in this frame at the top of your screen.
We broke the video into 256 shades from white to black, all different shades of gray. And we were able to match that up with the temperature of the cows to match the temperature of the object. The object was roughly at about 104 degrees.
Right away, that eliminates a jet engine, which emits exhaust 15 times hotter.
The thermal signature doesn't match anything that we know now, and there's no sign of any kind of propulsion system on this.
Then they figure out the object's size using this frame when the object goes behind a light post 2 pixels wide.
Okay, well, the object went behind it, was blanked out. So now maybe it's 2 pixels. And that's why we come up with it's about 3 to 5 feet in diameter.
Based on that analysis, Hoffman says the most likely earthly explanations are eliminated.
We ruled out that it wasn't a balloon. It was about 18-mile-an-hour winds from the northeast, and this object was going in opposite directions from that. So it's clearly not a balloon.
What about a drone? Our aviation expert, Tim McMillan, is skeptical.
How are you achieving flight without an airfoil, without an angle attack, without wings, to simplify that? How are you doing that?
And finally, a bird?
We took a look at thermal signatures of birds and various other objects, and it doesn't match anything like this. And there you go. It's unidentified. It's not from any place here.
So is it proof or not? Well, you might think it's a bird, a balloon, or a man-made aircraft, but it is hard to explain how this goes in and out of the water and splits. So folks, we're gonna call this a UFO. You almost never see an object like this going into and out of the water. That's amazing. March 2019, it's evening in Two Creeks, Wisconsin. Marine Corps veteran Miles Pinoche sees a bright light outside his window, but he doesn't have a camera. So he calls a neighbor who records this. A large glowing orange orb appears in the darkness, and take a closer look. 3 smaller dimmer lights are near it. Miles says he is convinced about what he saw.
I said, you have got to be kidding me. I'm like, I'm looking at a UFO right now.
But writer MJ Banias explains that what really got everyone's attention isn't just what these lights are, but where they are.
According to the witness, this video was shot over Point Beach nuclear power plant.
Reports of UFOs at nuclear sites go back decades.
There are ideas out there that these UFOs require our nuclear assets for the purpose of refueling. The other theory is that whatever is piloting the UFOs is monitoring our nuclear development, as if we are sort of animals in a zoo and the UFOs are keeping track of the technology level we're at.
Galactic zoo theory would explain why UFOs might observe without fully revealing themselves. They don't want to disturb their pet's habitat. And it would explain their fascination with nuclear facilities. They're interested in how we use these new toys. In fact, Banias says the most infamous incident occurred in 1967 at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana, a launch site for nuclear missiles.
In the Malmstrom case, we have guards outside the facility. Suddenly, this red light appears over the base, and one by one, the nuclear missiles start getting turned off. So the launch capability was removed, and the entire system died.
In fact, despite being nearly 50 years old, the Malmstrom incident became a hot topic during the May 2022 congressional hearings on UFOs.
A glowing red orb was observed overhead. I'm not commenting on the accuracy of this. I'm simply asking you whether you're aware of it and whether you have any comment on the accuracy of that report.
I have heard stories. I have not seen the official data on that.
It's that infamous 1967 Malmstrom incident that's got so many people worried about UFOs and nukes. And now we have an orangish light over the Point Beach nuclear facility. But what is it? Let's see if our experts can decide. Assuming the video is legitimate, could we be looking at some sort of aircraft?
Nuclear plants, nuclear facilities, they are protected airspace. These are for very obvious reasons, restricted areas where people aren't supposed to fly. You wouldn't normally see a commercial airline flying over a nuclear facility as part of its conventional flight path. Drone and helicopter falls into that same category.
Okay, so if we're not looking at a conventional aircraft, could this be a genuine UFO? During the Malmstrom incident, airmen did report lights streaking directly above them, which then stopped and changed directions at high speed. But McMillan sees a difference.
It certainly doesn't fit in the category of the exotic kind of UFO events that we've heard of or seen before. We're also not seeing any type of extreme flight characteristics, sudden acceleration, something that really makes me step back and go, whoa, now this is really strange.
So what could it be? Rich Hoffman of the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies believes he sees a smoking gun.
I saw a brief flash of what looked like a structure that was in front of or right below that orange light. There's like an illumination of some sort of a building there.
Hoffman believes that building changes everything.
It goes much higher than the actual lights that are out in the distance in terms of its apparent height. To me, it's very indicative of the fact that the lights are relatively low in relationship to the building that's off to the left.
Hoffman is convinced these lights are not in the sky, but instead on the ground. That fact would also explain their color. High-pressure sodium vapor lights are widely used in industrial buildings and streetlights, and often emit an orange hue.
It's very clear that the image is looking almost straight ahead at lights that are off in the distance. It's not looking up at all, it's looking straight ahead. They're pretty much consistent with anything from a distant street light or a building light.
Our verdict? We're going with likely street or building lights. And we'll add, though, despite our conclusions, Miles insists he witnessed a real UFO that night up in the sky. As for galactic zoo theory, it may sound humiliating at first, but consider this. We take better care of our pets than we do many of our own species. Maybe our benevolent alien masters could keep us from destroying ourselves. It's Independence Day in Alamance, North Carolina, and a local man is enjoying a barbecue with his family. Fireworks are going off intermittently, so he's been looking at the sky all evening, when he suddenly sees something even more spectacular.
It's moving. It's moving slow.
It's a classic orb-shaped UFO, the kind we've seen in several videos. Some real, some fake. And what makes this footage extra special is that it goes on for more than 8 minutes.
God, I wish I had some binoculars.
Now look at what happens here at the 6.5-minute mark.
Oh, wow.
Hey, look at that.
Something's coming off of it. Two things are coming off of it.
Where is it at?
One went up and one's coming down.
Where is it?
Holy crap, look at this.
The orb seems to bifurcate, and seconds later, it splits again.
Oh, now something's coming out of the other one. Holy third one's coming out.
There's 3 different, oh my God, that's crazy.
Like other orbs seen around the world, this one had no wings or obvious means of propulsion. It's hard to judge its speed, but others have been clocked by commercial pilots at over 500 miles per hour.
And it's pulsating too, man. That is nuts.
Journalist Alexis Brooks, who writes and speaks about UFOs, says the duration of this sighting is important.
Some individuals that have long contact encounters, that is, exceeding 5 minutes or more, may actually be having a literal contact encounter without them being consciously aware of it. Could it be that non-human intelligence or the occupants of the craft were actually making contact with the witness and vice versa?
Yeah, we got some action going on here, boys.
The witness said he later tried to find some earthly explanation for the incident, even checking with a nearby military base. But to this day, he says he's gotten no answers. Our experts may be able to change that. Our video analyst, Mark D'Antonio, begins by looking at the surrounding factors involved in this event.
I stepped through it frame by frame to try to isolate the components and equate them with something that we might already know. It's actually pretty high altitude.
For starters, D'Antonio's positive it couldn't be a bird.
Birds don't have that kind of reflectivity to them. Even geese at high altitude, you can still detect that they're birds.
He's just as sure it's not a plane or a drone.
Planes and drones, they have to follow Federal Aviation Administration rules for lighting, and this object had none of that.
Nor could it be a natural phenomenon like a meteor. It just hangs in the sky too long.
Meteors are momentary objects. They go through the sky, and then they're gone.
So what was it? The secret could be in that strange splitting.
Here you can see, in this image, you can see how it's a teardrop shape, and these objects are falling away. And the object that's way up there has changed brightness tremendously. Now, my thinking takes me down the path of weather balloon.
It certainly wouldn't be the first time a weather balloon was mistaken for a UFO. In fact, the government initially claimed it was a weather balloon that caused the Roswell incident. But that still doesn't explain how this thing could split apart and move off in different directions.
I would guess that this is a weather balloon where whatever was attached to it broke off. And when something like this happens, the resistance of the air will tend to streamline it and make it more into a teardrop shape. And that shape is what I think we're seeing here.
That theory sounds plausible, but then, to our surprise, atmospheric scientist Deanna Hintz shoots it out of the sky.
So I do think it's really unlikely that this is any kind of, weather instrument. They come down on a little parachute, and they wouldn't emit light this brightly like this. It doesn't seem to be meteorologically related.
You see it, Gene? You see a UFO?
So America, is it proof or not? It doesn't appear to be a bird or a plane. Could it be a weather balloon? Maybe, but a local weather service later told the witness there were none in the area. Until we get more solid information, we're gonna call this a genuine UFO.